See, it's very important when you use studies that you know which studies to give more credence to and which studies hold the most valuable information. Because let me say it right here, that for a study to be really definitive, it has to have thousands of participants, it has to go on for decades, and it has to use hard endpoints like death or cancer or cardiovascular disease or heart attacks or cancer deaths. So we're talking here about three criteria. Thousands of participants, many years of study going on for decades, and using hard endpoints. A soft endpoint would be like your blood pressure went down, you lost some weight, or your cholesterol dropped. And we can give people a diet of just Twinkies, and they'll get sick of eating Twinkies, they'll reduce their calorie count, and they might lose some weight. People could almost use any study, like the egg people do. They try to take a diet that's really bad and that already is full of saturated fat and full of all kinds of junk, and they add an egg to it, it doesn't get worse. The egg doesn't make people worse. Because the diet's already so bad, once you're smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, adding 2.5 packs isn't going to make things any worse. You're already smoking 2 packs a day. The point is when your diet, so it's not adding the egg, but you substitute, they do with other studies with saturated fat, they take the saturated fat, like the cheese or the butter out, and they put in more refined carbohydrates like sugar or white bread, and they show there's no benefit. Well, they're both bad stuff. White bread and sugar are just as bad as saturated fat. Not a question is, if you took the saturated fat and put beans or broccoli in there, you'd see benefit. But of course, if you put in pasta and bread in there or sugar, you're not going to see any difference. And you may even see you get things worse because some people are more sugar sensitive, more glycemically sensitive. The point I'm making is these studies can be used to confuse the public and trick them. Where they're not getting tricked are these long-term studies, like this we're talking about now, like a study that went on with more than 40,000 women, and they've actually about 44,000 women, and they tracked them over a 20-year period. 44,000 women, and they tracked how many animal products they ate. And they gave each person a score on 1 to 20. The 1 would be mostly a vegan diet, and the 20 would be most like an Atkins type, paleo, where they're a ketogenic diet, with eating mostly animal products with very little carbohydrate in their diet. And everybody else scored from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, from between 1 and 20, based on what percentage of their diet was plant material versus animal products in the score. And they found that over this 20-year period, there was a large number of deaths and a large number of heart attacks. And they could predict the amount of cardiovascular deaths by the animal product percentage in the person's diet. And that the people who scored above 16 had 60% increased risk of cardiovascular death compared to the group scoring below 6, for example. The point I'm making here, it's not just one study with many people. There was another study with more than 120,000 participants, which followed people for 24 years and looked at cardiovascular death, a Swedish study that followed that people, and they showed the same thing was true, that the two things were at primary effect. More animal products increased cardiovascular death, and more refined carbohydrates increased cardiovascular death, and more fruits and vegetables and beans, more natural produce or plants decreased death. And there's a huge difference between all those parameters. We're talking about dividing food into 3 categories: produce, natural whole foods, processed foods, and animal products. And to be healthy, we have to greatly expand the produce component and greatly collapse and reduce the animal product and processed food component. But what the paleo diet or the Atkins diet or these popular meat-based diets do is they show people studies on the negative effect of processed foods and high glycemic carbohydrates, and by inference, they make it seem like it's okay to eat more animal products instead of those foods. They're not fair. It's not just sloppy science. It's irresponsible, it's dangerous, it's malpractice. Because right now, there's no controversy. We know from these long-term studies that earn credence to the large numbers of people that any diet style rich in animal products is shortening the lifespan, and particularly shortening it for cancer as well, not just cardiovascular disease. A recent study published in 2014 followed 6,000 people for 18 years. In the 50 to 65-year-old category, if they're in the 50 to 65-year-old category or age range, and they follow them for 18 years, let's say they're 60, now they're 78, right? They're 50, so between 50 and 65, they followed for 18 years, and they found that those people eating more animal products had 4 times the amount of cancer compared to those eating less animal products. And they classified those in the high animal product category as those eating more than 30% of calories from animal products, like Americans do. Americans already eat a third of their diet from animal products. And those in the low category, they counted below 10%. And then they had the moderate, the middle, and the middle, but then they saw that in each category, cancer deaths went up accordingly. Overall mortality or overall death more than doubled in the high category of animal products. By worldwide standards, the amount of animal products eaten in America is considered a very large amount by worldwide standard. In South Korea, for example, in 1988, they were only eating 6.4% of calories from animal products. And they had 1/8 the amount of breast cancer. And then over the subsequent 20 years, because of the influence of America, they're now eating 16% of calories from animal products, and their breast cancer rates went up 8-fold. The breast cancer rates went up 800%, right, or 700%, over that, with time, because they've adapted more American ways. We're the example. I always say the American diet with this 33% of calories from animal products, with almost 60% from processed foods, I say you can't design a better diet to create cancer and heart disease. That's why I say this diet must be designed by ISIS to kill us, right? And how you can really kill people, if you want to, is by mixing the high glycemic carbohydrates with the animal products, with especially the processed meats, the red meats, the barbecued meats, the grilled meats. Fast food meats are grilled, barbecued, flame broiled, fried. More damage because you're not cooking the food in a soup, you're not boiling it. You're cooking it under high heat, causing heterocyclic amines and nitrosamino compounds that cause cancer in the way the food's prepared as well. But when you have a hamburger with the white bread and the meat and spaghetti and meatballs with the white flour and the beef, and you have the ham and cheese and the pizza and the white flour and the cheese, we're mixing the high glycemic carbohydrate with the high animal product. That raises those unfavorable hormones we're talking about, both insulin and insulin-like growth factor 1 or IGF-1. Then we're really promoting a huge amount of needless suffering and cancer in this country.